A mother held her dying child in a hospital room, whispering one final prayer to a saint she had just learned about hours before. What happened in the next 36 hours would shock doctors, transform a family, and become one of the most compelling miracle stories of our generation. This is not an ancient tale from medieval times. This happened 8 weeks ago in Atlanta, Georgia. The medical records exist. The witnesses are alive and speaking. The child who should have died is running and playing today. And it all began with a prayer to St. Carlo Acutis that turned a mother's tears into tears of joy. If you are facing an impossible situation right now, do not click away. Hit that like button immediately, share this with everyone you know, and subscribe to our channel because this story will restore your faith in miracles and show you exactly how to access the same divine help this family received. The story begins on a Tuesday morning when 3-year-old Emma Rodriguez stopped breathing. Her mother, Christina, found her unconscious on the bathroom floor. Emma had been fighting a severe respiratory infection for days, but doctors said it was manageable at home. They were wrong. Christina screamed for her husband while performing CPR on their little girl. The ambulance arrived within 6 minutes, but those 6 minutes felt like 6 hours. Emma was rushed to the emergency room with no pulse and no oxygen reaching her brain. The medical team worked frantically to revive her. After 22 minutes, they got her heart beating again. But the damage from oxygen deprivation was catastrophic. The attending physician, Dr. Marcus Hamilton, pulled Christina and her husband aside. His face told them everything before he spoke a word. "Your daughter is alive, but the brain damage is severe. She may never wake up, and if she does, she will not be the Emma you knew. I am so sorry." Christina collapsed into her husband's arms. Their beautiful, vibrant 3-year-old who had been singing and dancing just days before was gone, replaced by a body on life support with a brain that would never function normally again. But this is where the story takes a turn that will give you chills. Write in the comments below if you have ever felt like all hope was lost. Share what helped you keep going. Your story could encourage someone else who is in their darkest moment right now. Christina's sister arrived at the hospital that evening. She found Christina sitting beside Emma's bed, tears streaming down her face, holding her daughter's small hand. The machines beeped rhythmically, the only sound in the room besides Christina's quiet sobs. The sister did not know what to say. What words could possibly comfort a mother watching her child die? So instead, she pulled out her phone and showed Christina something she had seen on social media that morning. A post about St. Carlo Acutis, a young saint who was performing miracles for desperately ill children. Christina barely looked at the screen. She had prayed already. She had begged God. She had made promises and bargains. Nothing had changed. Emma was dying, and all the prayers in the world were not going to save her. But her sister insisted, "Just try. What do you have to lose? This saint was young. He died at 15. Maybe he understands better than other saints what it means to lose a child's life too soon. Maybe he will hear you." Christina took the phone and stared at the image of St. Carlo, a teenage boy with a gentle smile, someone who looked like he could have been a friend of her older nephew. She read the brief description of his life, his love for Jesus in the Eucharist, his death from leukemia in just 3 days. Something stirred in Christina's heart. Not hope exactly. Hope felt too dangerous when Emma was dying. But something else. A tiny opening. A willingness to try one more time. What Christina prayed in that hospital room would change everything. She did not use formal words or elegant language. She simply spoke from her broken heart. "Carlo, I just learned about you. I do not know if you can hear me. I do not know if you are even allowed to help in situations like this. But I am begging you. My baby is dying. The doctors say she is already gone, but you died young too. You know what it feels like. Please, please, if you have any power in heaven, ask Jesus to save my Emma. I cannot lose her. Please." Christina cried so hard she could barely finish the prayer. Her sister held her while she sobbed. The machines continued their rhythmic beeping. Emma lay motionless. Nothing changed in that moment. No dramatic signs, no sudden improvement. Just a grieving mother and her desperate prayer to a saint she had just met. But heaven was listening. And what happened over the next 36 hours would defy every medical expectation. If this story is gripping you, share it right now. Someone on your friends list needs to hear about the power of prayer to Saint Carlo Acutis. And subscribe with notifications on, because you need to hear what happens next. Christina stayed by Emma's bedside all night, alternating between praying to Saint Carlo and talking to her daughter. She told Emma stories. She sang the songs Emma loved. She described all the things they would do together when Emma got better, even though doctors said Emma would never do any of those things again. Around 3 in the morning, exhausted and emotionally drained, Christina fell asleep in the chair beside Emma's bed, still holding her daughter's hand. She dreamed that Emma was running through a field of flowers, laughing, completely healthy. In the dream, a young man was walking beside Emma, watching over her with a gentle smile. Christina could not see his face clearly, but she felt peace radiating from him. Christina woke at dawn to find nurses rushing into the room. Her heart stopped. This was it. Emma had died while she slept, but the nurses were not moving with the slow, sad purpose of staff responding to death. They were moving with urgent excitement. "Mrs. Rodriguez, look at the monitors," one nurse said, pointing to the screens. Christina looked but did not understand what she was seeing. Numbers and lines that meant nothing to her exhausted brain. "Her brain activity is increasing," the nurse explained. "Significantly, Dr. Hamilton is on his way." Christina stared at the monitors, afraid to believe what she was hearing. Brain activity. Emma's brain was supposed to be permanently damaged. The oxygen deprivation should have destroyed too many cells for recovery, but the numbers on the screen were showing something different. Dr. Hamilton arrived and examined Emma thoroughly. He ordered additional tests. He checked the equipment, wondering if malfunctions were giving false readings. Everything was working properly. The readings were accurate. Emma's brain was showing activity patterns that made no medical sense given her condition. "I do not understand this," Dr. Hamilton admitted to Christina. 24 hours ago, I would have said recovery was impossible, but something is happening that I cannot explain." Christina knew exactly what was happening. Saint Carlo Acutis was interceding for her daughter. She pulled out her phone and showed Dr. Hamilton the image of Carlo. She told him about her desperate prayer the night before. The doctor, a man of science who rarely acknowledged religion in medical settings, simply nodded and said, "Keep praying." By that evening, 36 hours after Christina's prayer to Saint Carlo, Emma opened her eyes. Write in the comments if you believe in miracles. Tell us about a time when prayer changed an impossible situation. These testimonies matter because they build faith in our entire community. Emma's eyes opened slowly, confused and unfocused. She looked around the room without recognition. Christina held her breath, terrified that the doctors had been right about brain damage. Emma might be awake but not really present. Not the Emma they knew. Then Emma's eyes found her mother's face. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Emma smiled, that same bright smile that had lit up their home for 3 years. And she spoke. "Mommy." One word, the most beautiful word Christina had ever heard. Emma knew her, recognized her, was actually present and aware. Christina sobbed, but these were different tears. Not tears of grief, but tears of joy so intense they hurt. Dr. Hamilton rushed in and began assessment tests. Emma tracked objects with her eyes. She responded to commands. She squeezed hands when asked. She identified her parents correctly. Every test showed cognitive function that should not exist given the severity and duration of her oxygen deprivation. "This is remarkable," Dr. Hamilton kept saying. "This should not be possible. The damage was too extensive. Recovery like this simply does not happen." But it was happening. Hour by hour, Emma continued improving. By the next morning, she was speaking in short sentences. By the afternoon, she was asking for her favorite foods. By evening, she was sitting up and watching cartoons. The medical staff could not believe what they were witnessing. 3 days after Christina's desperate prayer to Saint Carlo, Emma was moved out of intensive care. 5 days later, she was discharged from the hospital with instructions for follow-up, but no signs of permanent damage. 1 week later, she was playing with her toys at home like nothing had ever happened. Dr. Hamilton documented Emma's case extensively. He wrote in his report that her recovery defied medical explanation. He noted the timeline of Christina's prayer and the subsequent improvements. He concluded that while he could not scientifically explain what occurred, something beyond conventional medicine had intervened in Emma's case. But the miracle did not end with Emma's healing. What happened to the Rodriguez family afterward reveals why St. Carlo's intercession always leads people to Jesus. Please share this video right away if this testimony is touching your heart. And make sure you are subscribed because the story gets even more powerful from here. Christina had been a nominal Catholic before Emma's illness. She attended Mass on Christmas and Easter. She said prayers occasionally, but she had no real relationship with God or understanding of her faith. Emma's near-death experience changed everything. Christina wanted to know more about St. Carlo Acutis, the young saint who had saved her daughter's life. She researched his story online. She learned about his profound love for Jesus in the Eucharist. She discovered his belief that the Eucharist was the highway to heaven. She read about his daily Mass attendance and his dedication to serving others. Something awakened in Christina's soul. If Carlo loved Jesus in the Eucharist so much, maybe she should discover what he saw there. She started attending daily Mass at the church near her home. She had never done this before, even in her most religious phases. The first morning she attended, Christina cried through the entire Mass, not from sadness but from encountering something she had never really experienced before, Jesus, truly present in the consecrated host. The same Jesus who had heard Carlo's intercession for Emma. The same Jesus who had performed an impossible miracle for her family. Christina began receiving communion daily. She signed up for Eucharistic adoration. She joined a Bible study. She volunteered in the parish. Within months, she was a completely different person. Her husband noticed. Her family noticed. Everyone who knew her could see the transformation. But here is what makes this testimony especially powerful and why it has drawn so much attention. Christina started sharing Emma's story everywhere she went, at the grocery store, at her daughter's preschool, on social media, wherever people would listen. She carried an image of St. Carlo in her purse and showed it to everyone. She told them about the young saint who had interceded for her dying daughter. Her story spread rapidly through social media. Thousands of people shared it. News outlets picked it up. A local television station interviewed the family. The story reached people across the country who had never heard of St. Carlo Acutis. And something remarkable started happening. People who heard Emma's story began praying to St. Carlo for their own impossible situations, and they started reporting their own miracles. A woman in Florida with stage 4 breast cancer prayed to St. Carlo after hearing Emma's story. 3 months later, her scans showed no evidence of cancer. Her oncologist documented the case as an unexplained remission. A teenager in Texas struggling with suicidal depression learned about Carlo through Christina's testimony. He began praying and attending Mass like Carlo did. Within weeks, the crushing darkness lifted. His therapist called it the fastest turnaround she had ever witnessed. A family in California facing foreclosure prayed a novena to St. Carlo after reading about Emma. On the 9th day, an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative provided exactly the amount they needed to save their home. The miracles multiplied. Each person who experienced St. Carlo's intercession shared their testimony. More people learned about this powerful young saint. More prayers went up. More miracles occurred. The cycle continued expanding. Write in the comments what miracle you need St. Carlo to intercede for. Be specific. Name your need. Our community will join you in prayer, and your public declaration activates spiritual power. Christina created a Facebook group for people praying to St. Carlo. It started with 15 members. Within 6 months, it had grown to over 50,000 people from 40 different countries. Every day, multiple people post testimonies of answered prayers and miraculous interventions. The group has become a place where desperate people find hope, where the suffering find comfort, where those facing impossible situations discover that nothing is impossible with God when you have powerful intercessors like St. Carlo bringing your prayers before Jesus. Emma, the little girl who should have died or suffered permanent brain damage, is thriving today. She just turned 4 years old. She shows no signs of the trauma her body endured. She is developmentally normal in every way. She is bright, energetic, and full of life. Christina has Emma's medical records framed in their home alongside an image of St. Carlo. She wants Emma to grow up knowing the story of her miracle. She wants her daughter to understand that St. Carlo Acutis saved her life and, more importantly, led their entire family to Jesus. The Rodriguez family now organizes an annual Mass of Thanksgiving on the anniversary of Emma's healing. Last year, over 300 people attended. People came from different states to celebrate Emma's miracle and give thanks for St. Carlo's intercession. The church was packed with people whose lives had been touched by Emma's story. Dr. Hamilton attended that Mass. The doctor who had told Christina her daughter would never recover stood in the congregation giving thanks for a miracle he could not explain but could not deny. He later told Christina that Emma's case changed how he views medicine and faith. He said he would never again tell a family that their situation was completely hopeless. This is the power of miracles through St. Carlo's intercession. They do not just help individuals, they transform families, they convert hearts, they strengthen communities. They demonstrate God's active presence in our world today. Let me share with you the exact prayer Christina prayed that night in the hospital. This is the prayer that began Emma's miracle. This is the prayer that turned a mother's tears of grief into tears of joy. Prayer to St. Carlo Acutis in desperate situations. St. Carlo Acutis, young friend of Jesus, I come to you in my darkest hour. My situation feels hopeless. My heart is breaking. My faith is weak. But I am asking you to intercede for me anyway. You died so young. You understand loss and suffering in ways that give you compassion for those of us who are hurting. You loved Jesus in the Eucharist with your whole heart. You have access to the source of all miracles. Please bring my desperate prayer to Jesus right now. Ask him to intervene in this impossible situation. Ask him to demonstrate his power and love. Ask him to turn my tears of sorrow into tears of joy. I trust in your intercession, even though I barely know you. I believe that you hear this prayer and care about my suffering. I surrender to whatever God decides, but I am begging for the miracle I need. St. Carlo, pray for me. Stand beside me in this darkness. Lead me to Jesus. Help me trust when everything seems hopeless. Obtain for me the grace I desperately need. Thank you for hearing my prayer. Thank you for caring about my pain. Thank you for interceding with Jesus on my behalf. I trust in God's love and in your powerful prayers. Amen. This simple, honest prayer has been present in countless testimonies of miracles through St. Carlo's intercession. The power is not in the exact words, but in the faith and desperation with which you pray them. Carlo responds to broken hearts crying out for help. Christina's story teaches us several crucial lessons about praying for miracles. First, you do not need to know much about the saint you are praying to. Christina had just learned about Carlo hours before her prayer. What matters is your willingness to ask and your trust that the saint will intercede for you. Second, do not give up even when the situation seems completely hopeless. Emma's doctors said recovery was impossible. Christina prayed anyway. Your impossible situation might be exactly where God wants to demonstrate his power through Carlo's intercession. Third, be willing to share your testimony when prayers are answered. Christina's willingness to tell everyone about Emma's miracle has led to countless other people discovering Carlo's powerful intercession. Your testimony could be what saves someone else. Fourth, let the miracle lead you to deeper relationship with Jesus. Christina's greatest blessing was not just Emma's physical healing, but her own spiritual awakening. Carlo always leads people to what he loved most, Jesus in the Eucharist. Finally, trust the timing. Christina's prayer was answered within 36 hours, but not instantly. Some miracles take longer. Some look different than expected. Trust that Carlo is interceding and God is working, even when you cannot see immediate results. If this story has given you hope, please share this video immediately with everyone you know. Post it on every social media platform. Send it to friends who are struggling. Your share could reach someone in their desperate moment and connect them with the help they need through St. Carlo's intercession. The Rodriguez family wants everyone to know that miracles are real and available today. God has not stopped working powerfully in our world. He still responds to desperate prayers brought to him by saints like Carlo, who love us and want to help us. Emma's miracle has inspired hundreds of other families to pray to St. Carlo. The testimonies continue multiplying, the faith continues spreading, the miracles continue happening, all because one mother prayed one desperate prayer to a saint she had just learned about. Your story could be next. Your tears could be turned to joy. Your impossible situation could become your greatest testimony. Your prayer could be the one that St. Carlo brings before Jesus today. A father in Michigan, whose son was in a coma after a car accident, heard Emma's story and began praying to St. Carlo. His son woke up 3 days later with full cognitive function, despite doctors' predictions of permanent brain damage. A woman in Arizona with a failing marriage heard Christina's testimony and asked St. Carlo to intercede. Within weeks, her husband agreed to counseling. Within months, their relationship was restored. They credit Carlo with saving their family. A college student in Ohio facing expulsion for false accusations prayed to St. Carlo after learning about Emma. New evidence emerged that cleared his name completely. He graduated with honors and now shares his testimony of Carlo's intercession. These stories represent just a fraction of the miracles happening through St. Carlo's powerful prayers. Each testimony leads to more people discovering this young saint. Each miracle produces more faith in communities. Each answered prayer glorifies God and demonstrates his love for his children. Christina says the most important lesson from Emma's miracle is this: never stop praying, never lose hope, never think your situation is beyond God's power to transform. St. Carlo Acutis is listening. Jesus is ready to respond. Miracles are still happening for those who ask with faith. Write in the comments your commitment to pray to St. Carlo starting today. Tell us what you are asking for. Share your faith that miracles are possible. Let our community surround you with prayer and support. Thank you for watching Emma's miracle story. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss powerful testimonies about St. Carlo Acutis and the miracles continuing through his intercession. Share this video with everyone who needs hope, especially those facing medical crises with their children. Remember Christina's desperate prayer in that hospital room. Remember how her tears of grief became tears of joy. Remember that the same saint who interceded for Emma can intercede for you. Remember that nothing is impossible with God. Start praying to St. Carlo Acutis today. Tell him your desperate need. Trust his intercession. Believe that your tears can be turned to joy just like Christina's were. Your miracle may be just one prayer away. Go in peace, knowing that St. Carlo hears every desperate cry for help. Your situation is not hopeless. Your prayer is not unanswered. Your tears will be turned to joy when you trust in the power of God working through his saints. Emma's story proves it. Thousands of other testimonies confirm it. Your story could be next. May St. Carlo Acutis intercede powerfully for you and your loved ones. May your impossible situation become your greatest testimony of God's love and power. May your tears be turned to joy through the miraculous healing that comes from trusting completely in divine mercy. Amen.